The World Wrestling Federation, for over 50 years, the revolutionary force in sports entertainment.
Hey guys, it's Steve from Antics here. You're listening to Good Friends Better Running Podcast, only on the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel. Tyrone, let's go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another fun-filled edition of the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. My name is Tyrone, and as always, I am joined to the skip to my zip, Mr. J. How are you today, buddy?
I am doing well, my friend. It's been a day, but it's been a beautiful day outside, and all things considered, life is grand. I just opened myself a trusty Ace Hill strawberry grapefruit vodka soda in a can. It is delicious, and I'm ready to devour this 1995 new generation content that you have so graciously provided for us this week. For those of you that are unaware, we are covering the King of the Ring tournament and pay-per-view from 1995. Now, this is typically my wheelhouse, so I am very eagerly anticipating what Tyrone has come up with this week for us.
And, normally if you gave me a pay-per-view that was just filled with so much garbage as this one was, I might be mad. But I had so much fun with this one, dude. We're going to do it proper. We're going through all the qualifying matches and everything. So, guys, strap in. This one could be a bumpy road.
I can't wait. It should be a lot of fun. As we alluded to earlier, this is typically my wheelhouse of the new generation. It's my favorite era in WWF and WWE. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you've come up with. Hopefully it's not too off the rails, but knowing you, I have no idea what to expect. But before we get into that, we, spoiler alert, we're recording on Wednesday, June 2nd today. And this episode will be dropping this upcoming Monday. But something pretty big happened today in the world of WWE specifically, and that is another round of WWE roster cuts. A couple of these names really caught me off guard, Tyrone. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go through the list here. You had Santana Garrett, who, as great of a performer as she was, hadn't really done much in the company, so that one didn't catch me off guard as much as others. You got Lana, who, yeah, she's been there for a while. She's starting to improve, but again, didn't really catch me off guard. Ruby Riott, that one kind of caught me off guard because I think Ruby Riott is a fantastic worker. Buddy Murphy, again, surprising. But the two that really, really caught me, it seemed like they came out of left field there, were Aleister Black, who they just recently started a program with. Like, he was doing all these vignettes. It was really cool, talking about the Dark Father and whatever that was leading to. He interrupted the Intercontinental Championship match on SmackDown last week. And then, of course, Braun Strowman. I don't know what happened there. Like, I was saying to you off air earlier, I don't understand how you release somebody like Braun, who is almost their utility player. Somebody can't make a pay-per-view, you throw Braun in there. You need somebody reliable to go to Saudi Arabia, Braun will do it. Like, Braun never said no. He was the definition of a company man. So I feel like something had to have happened to cause this one. Or do you think it was just financial and only financial?
I don't know if it was solely financially motivated. I think maybe some of them were. I was a little surprised by Lana, I'll be honest. I mean, she's been doing quite a bit on television. Typically, when we get these roster cuts after WrestleMania, you find it's a lot of people that haven't had a lot of television time or haven't been invested in storylines whatsoever. So a lot of these cuts have kind of taken me a little bit off guard. You look at somebody like Alana, for example, who's even after Rusev left the company, she's had so much involvement in storylines and angles. Really seemed like they were going to continue to utilize her. Of course, Aleister Black, he hasn't been doing a whole lot other than the aforementioned angle on SmackDown. Hasn't been doing a whole lot for a while, but he was very popular, specifically in NXT. And then when he came up to the main roster, he had a lot of stops and starts. As for Braun Strowman, my take on Braun Strowman is that I don't think that he's anything more than a victim of poor timing and poorly conceived booking. If you look at Braun Strowman, how over he was a couple of years ago, where he was poised to be the guy that was going to possibly overtake Roman Reigns in terms of popularity and be the face of the company. I'm talking about maybe a 2017, 2018, maybe even going to 2019, and them not pulling the trigger on him. Primarily, I think, because they had it so stuck in their minds that they wanted Roman Reigns to be their guy and the face of the company no matter what, that at a certain point, his equity with the fans started to dwindle a bit, and he wasn't perceived as the star that he had been, say, a little while previous. So I think maybe what's happened with him is that he has kind of fallen off and fallen out of favor in terms of his perceived value in the company, whereas a couple of years ago he might have been, a bit more of a I don't know how to describe it, a bit more of a valued commodity on the roster, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. It's almost like if you looked at 2-3 years ago, he could have been an MVP of either Raw or SmackDown, whatever one Roman wasn't on. And now, because they waited so long, they kind of changed his gimmick a little bit, where he went from being just the monster woodsman type thing that he kind of looked like to becoming almost a bounty hunter look with the camo and the gloves and the shaved head. But I still think this was a mistake. And I will eat my words 100% if there is a reason behind it. You never know in this day and age. Something could have happened, but I don't see it with him. The other one I want to touch on for a minute there is Ruby Riott. I think that's another one, what you talk about with Braun Strowman with the wasted potential. I think it's the exact same thing with Ruby Riott. You look at her days when she was Heidi Lovelace on the Independents. She is one of the top women's workers out there. She's not even just top women's, top workers. She's fantastic. She made the Riot Squad work with two people who clearly they really didn't have a lot in common in Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan. And then they all ended up becoming best friends. Were they the greatest in-ring trio? Absolutely not. But they were entertaining. They put stuff together. They should have had a tag team title run, in my opinion. I think that's another one that just, what the hell, why would you release her? There seems to be, I don't want to play that game where if you're going to release somebody, it should be this, it should be that. You don't want anybody to ever lose their job and their source of livelihood. It's just really, really confusing to me that these are the ones they're doing when every single one of these people, with the exception of Buddy Murphy and Santana Garrett, have been on TV in the last week. I don't get what's going through their minds.
Yeah, that's exactly, it's a head scratcher. And it goes back to my point with Braun Strowman. I mean, I think that when you have people that are at a certain level, specifically Strowman, I think that's the one that everybody's kind of scratching their head at most here. Specifically with him, because he was, again, at a point and at a level a few years back where he was potentially going to overtake Roman Reigns in terms of popularity. And he was sort of, the fans' choice. He was propelled to that spot based on, the perception that the fans had, and they had pushed him into that spot, into that level. And eventually when, you are rooting for someone and trying to put someone over and trying to get someone established as a fan, from a fan's perspective, and then you don't get rewarded for that, you continually keep getting told, no, this is our guy, meaning Roman Reigns, and no knock on Reigns, but that was kind of where we were at that time. Then eventually the fans kind of pick up on the fact that we're not going to get what we want. We're not going to get this guy or gal to the level that we want them to be, and they're not going to be that mega player that we really hoped they would be. And so they slowly start to lose confidence in that character and in that persona, because their fandom for the character is not rewarded by the company. And I think that's true of a lot of these different talents that we have on here. I mean, you speak of Ruby Riott. I agree. Ruby Riott's another one that, she was quite over at a certain point, and her gimmick was established. The same can be said for Lana. I mean, whether you like her or you don't, she was an established character that had some fanfare, had some credibility with the audience. So I just think that some of these releases have just if for nothing else, they've just become kind of very confusing to all of us. Like I don't really know how to articulate it to you more than just to say that I'm very confused by a lot of this. And again, there might be things backstage that pointed to this, and there are things that we don't know and reasons why this has happened. Maybe some people asked for their release. You don't know, but yeah, I think it's just a very, very confusing day for the wrestling world right now.
Well, one of the other ones that we didn't touch on, and we've never even mentioned this man's name on our show, I believe, but right after WrestleMania, they hired a new announcer for Monday Night Raw named Adnan Virk, and give it, 5 weeks later, he had already been released. Now they have Jimmy Smith in the booth, who is notorious for calling MMA and other combat sports. I don't know if he's going to fall into the pro wrestling bubble. I don't know what Vince's thoughts on all this are, because he brought in Pat McAfee to do SmackDown, and he seems to be thriving. They seem to love him. Him and Michael Cole are a pretty good team. I don't hate Michael Cole like a lot of people do. I think Michael Cole is a very good announcer, and he's also the one training most of these announcers as well. I don't think people realize that. Without him, you really wouldn't have a Corey Graves. You wouldn't really have a Tom Phillips, who I guess also was just released. But Nigel McGuinness, Vic Joseph, a lot of these people, Michael Cole has his hand in almost every little bit of their training. So I don't get why they're hiring announcers after letting Samoa Joe go, who seemed to be doing a great job, only to release them 5 weeks later. Does that one make any sense to you at all? Is it just me? I don't fully understand that.
Well, I think that the whole company overall is a bit perplexing to me. I looking back on it now through hindsight, I think that, I don't want to speak for you, but I know for myself in particular, I have felt the shift in the company's direction and the way that they present their product has been changing incrementally to, I don't know if they're trying to appeal to a larger audience base, or if they're trying to position themselves so that they are sort of on par with more mainstream kind of celebrated entertainment entities or properties. But for me, if I look at WWE where it is now to where it was even 10 years ago, I feel as though in many ways it's a completely unrecognizable company. And I think that's part of the reason why my interest in the current day product has just waned for years now. I mean, even before pandemic times, I would check in with Raw, and many times I would, out of habit, have it on Monday nights. But many times I'd be busy on my phone or doing something else. I would have it on in the background, and occasionally kind of there's something that piqued my interest in a segment, I'd watch. But I think you're the same way. I know that with us speaking off air, that a lot of times you would just record the shows and then skim through. I think a lot of people do that now. And I've long said and long sort of emphasized that I think that COVID for me was kind of like the push off the cliff that I needed. Once we lost the fans, I was just so disinterested in the product altogether. And it was already at that point before we had the pandemic and the lockdown, and that's to no fault of the WWE's. But once we lost the fan interaction as well, and it was empty arena matches weekly, I just tuned out, and I would chime in occasionally, see what was happening. But for the most part, my interest in current day WWE product is at an all-time low. It's never been this low before.
I honestly can't tell you the last time that I sat down and watched either Raw or SmackDown live. I PVR them. I may start it later in the evening if let's be honest, if I'm awake. I tend to go to bed quite early, as you know. But the only thing that I will watch live, and I have no problem watching live, is NXT, because they haven't ruined that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first one.
Keyword being yet. I feel like there's still plenty of time. We see what happens when all of these NXT people get quote unquote called up to the main roster. It's like a crapshoot these days, whether or not you're going to last or not.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I'll be the first to admit that, once we start getting fans back in arenas for weekly programming, I will definitely check out what they have to offer. I'm not, I will call myself a hypocrite in that way, that I don't necessarily agree with the direction the company's taking, but of course, being a lifelong WWE fan, I'm going to check out what they do once fans get back in the stands. I don't even agree necessarily that fans should be going back into stands in arenas, basketball or NHL-sized arenas, but I'm going to check it out. Most of my wrestling satiation comes from watching the WWE Network or doing this podcast these days, going back and watching old events. It's almost like I'd prefer to look back on the good old days than kind of like watch what we have going on currently. Because again, I can't recognize a lot of what I grew up with in today's wrestling product. It's not there for me anymore.
Oh, Jay, when did we become our parents? Whether it be talking about back in my day of wrestling, or my mom used to get on me that every song and rap track that I liked when I was in high school was, hey, this was originally this, and why can't they write their own music and blah, blah, blah. We are starting to become those people now saying that this generation is not good of whatever the product is, and we go back and just relive the glory days. I love that it's come full circle for us.
No, I'm 100% fine with that. And I don't think that it's necessarily the fault of the performers. I mean, to some degree, it is with some performers. I mean, you have to take some ownership in how you get over and when you get over. I mean, obviously,
it's 100% Jeff Hardy's fault that he hasn't evolved in the last 25 fucking years. Let's be real.
Well, no, but I'm just saying in general, like, you can't put all the onus on the company either. There has to be some personal accountability as well. But I think that in the time we're living in now, with everything being so highly scrutinized and everything being so tightly scripted, I think that there's a part of the product, the way it's presented now, where it's almost too perfect. It's almost too like blemish free. Everything is so super slick and so incredibly micromanaged. And again, like, take promos for an example. Every last word is scripted for you. I just feel like the authenticity of the product has, in a lot of ways, diminished, and my suspension of disbelief is much more difficultly suspended now because I know that there's no spontaneity to the show anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there might be one or two people who have the trust of the company that they don't need to stay on the exact script all the time, but they still need to a degree, stay mostly on the script, because it could screw up the other person that they're having the promo with. Like, I'll use Randy Orton as an example. I'm pretty sure Randy can go out there and say whatever the hell he wanted to, as long as it was within reason. But if he's cutting a promo against one of the younger guys, like a Matt Riddle, Riddle's probably so used to the scripted promos there that if Orton goes off script, it's going to completely throw him for a loop. We've seen him on Monday Night Raw forget his lines and legit just scooter away, not knowing what to do. So it's really sad that these guys don't have that little extra push inside of them to be like, oh fuck, if I forget a line, I can keep going. They're so they're so all about the machine that is the WWE, and they will not veer away for fear of either losing their job or losing their spot or anything like that. It's just getting ridiculous. Whereas when we were growing up, there was no scripted promos. And if there were, it was like, all right, I'm going to hit this point, this point, this point. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Bullet points. So, I mean, to expand on this conversation just a little bit further before we get into the rebooking, the last time we had a bunch of roster cuts, we did played a little game where one of us named the performer that got released and guessed where they would end up. Do you want to do that quick?
Do it, bud. You started off.
All right. So I'm going to start off with Santana Garrett.
Probably Impact. I know she has history there. Also, you know what? Santana Garrett would be fabulous anywhere, but I'm thinking Impact or NWA.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. In ROH.
Yeah, that would work too. What about Buddy Murphy?
I kind of see him going to Impact.
Yeah, for me, it's Impact or AEW. I don't see him in the NWA format. I don't really see him in the Ring of Honor format. He's a name that does have some drawing potential in my mind. But then again, he could also just go back to Australia. You never know. He could go back home and wrestle over there.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, the thing is that you can't count on like an AEW picking up everybody either. I mean, they can't get into a situation like we've talked about before where they're picking up all of the WWE's releases either. So, I mean, if you're going to pick somebody up, I mean, maybe one person from the WWE that would pick up right now. I'm not sure. But anyways, the next one, I guess, would be Lana. I mean, where do you see her going?
AEW. I feel like that if anyone's going to AEW, it's the one whose husband is a champion in AEW right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that would be the logical choice, but maybe it makes sense for someone like Alana to just sit on the shelf for a bit. I mean, she's been doing this heavy duty training now for the better part of a year, trying to really improve her craft. So maybe it might make sense for somebody like her to take, you know, the summer off or going into the fall, or maybe even towards the beginning of next year, and then come back, you know, fresh. People know who she is. She's obviously established as a character, and her face is very recognizable. So maybe that might be the right move for her.
What about Ruby Riott? Where do you see her going?
You know, every time we release these female talents from WWE, I always feel like we should be AEW should be mindful of, you know, talents, female talents specifically, that can really go in the ring. I think that they need to build up their women's division, as we talked about before. So I always thought that Mickie James would have been the right person to go to AEW from the last batch of roster cuts, because she would bring so much to the table. The same thing with Ruby Riott. I mean, she has so much experience. I could definitely see her going there and making a difference in the women's division, but, you know, who knows?
See, I see Ruby Riott ending up in AEW, but I see her going back on the indies, going to Shimmer, getting like a reunion show going on there where she was big for a while, maybe stopping at MLW for a little while, and then ending up at AEW. I feel like she's going to do the full tour of the indies and then end up at one of the big ones.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. That's kind of like what I was just saying about Lana, is maybe you get your face off of the mainstream product, whichever company it is, for a little while, and then you kind of come back with a fresh look, a fresh perspective, and then people, you know, they're going to know who you are, so you're able to sort of trade on that currency and come back and get a big reaction when you do.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, that leaves us with the other two, the Aleister Black and the Braun Strowman, and I know where I think they're both going, but I want to hear you first.
I could definitely see Aleister Black going to ROH. I think that he would do a great job there. I think if you're, you know, with the two of them, if I'll just bring Braun Strowman into the conversation now. I mean, I think that if you're going to bring somebody to AEW, it has to be one or the other, not both. So I don't really know who you bring in. I really don't know where Braun Strowman's going to end up. I mean, I think the logical choice is obviously, you know, AEW, but I don't know. I mean,
neither of them are over the age of 45 and half retired. So, do they really belong in AEW right now? Mark Henry.
Yeah, well, I think Mark Henry has said that he's been getting into the best shape of his life, and he wants to have a retirement match, because he never really had a proper retirement match. So that's something else that we haven't talked about, actually, before we get into the
Well, hold on. Let me say. I think Aleister Black will end up in New Japan and overseas. I think he'll go back to Europe where he made his name. I think Tommy End is coming out of retirement. See him back overseas. See him in New Japan, and I think Braun Strowman is going to get into acting.
Really?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, he's a big enough guy. He could easily end up like. He'll probably get offers for a lot of different companies. I see him taking this time to himself, maybe getting into acting. He's an avid hunter. He's an avid fisher. He's an avid outdoorsman. I see him taking the summer to just do those kinds of things. They all probably have the 90-day no compete clause, but that hasn't officially been stated about any of them. So you never really know.
Yeah, and I don't really know, like, when you come back as a Braun Strowman, like, how you come back and present yourself. Is it going to be sort of some kind of hybrid of how you were presented in WWE? Are you going to have a completely fresh gimmick and a fresh image? I really don't know. where you go if you're him. I mean, there's a lot of thinking to do, and I'm sure he's made some really good money over the last few years. So I think he would probably have some time to think things over. Just going into what we were talking about briefly about the legends going into AEW. I mean, Mark Henry going in again. This is something we've heard for the last little while, is that Mark Henry's been getting himself in immaculate shape. He wants to have that retirement match that he never really had officially in WWE. And I'm just a little bit confused as to why, the WWE would let that opportunity go, based on the fact that they are so gung-ho about having legends that can still work, do matches. So it's the same thing with Christian. I just don't understand why you let Christian go. I could totally see when the arenas start opening up, you could have had the Edge and Christian reunion tour type thing, for a month or two in the summer. With Mark Henry, you could have definitely built up to a big retirement match type situation at a SummerSlam type thing. So I don't know what the ins and outs are, and I don't know what the motivation is behind it, but I just find it a little bit perplexing as to why some of these really established, legendary names haven't been, if they are able to still go in the ring, why they weren't kept by WWE. I don't know. Maybe it's their own choice. I couldn't say.
I have no idea. The only thing that I find actually entertaining and humorous about this whole situation is there are actually people online right now that think Randy Orton is an AEW spy and talent seeker and scout and everything like that. Because when you look at Big Show, Christian, Mark Henry, Matt Hardy, all of their last times being on WWE television were with Randy Orton and him essentially kicking them off TV or hitting them or knocking them out. That was the last time anybody saw any of these characters on TV. I guess maybe not Christian. Christian would have been the Royal Rumble, wouldn't he? But
yeah, no.
All the other ones were like legends, and they're like, "Oh, Randy Orton's the talent scout for AEW." Like, people legitimately think this now.
Yeah, I pay no mind to what people on the internet wrestling community say. I find that so many of their takes are so ridiculous or so completely off the wall, specifically like the woke wrestling fans. I can't even, like, I look on social media from time to time at, wrestling Twitter feeds, but I don't have a lot of time for it, to be really honest. I find there's a little bit of toxicity there.
Just a little bit, man. Just a little bit. But I mean, yeah, it's a weird situation where all the legends end up showing up in AEW. I feel like if Mark Henry wanted to have one retirement match, it should have been in the WWE, where he has spent his entire career. It is strange to me that he went to AEW. I know he's a great scout. And I did say to you off air, too, that maybe Vince didn't see it as a big deal letting Mark Henry go, because as Mark Henry was always doing the PR and the Make-A-Wish stuff and the don't be a bully things, he's got Titus O'Neil now, who really put himself into that spot. And I feel like Vince treasures Titus a bit more than Mark Henry these days.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I mean, I guess again, my main point was just that, with these established names like a Christian and like a Mark Henry, guys who are really, really well known and very well respected by their WWE audience, to think that, if they did have some gas left in the tank, that Vince wouldn't try to, because we heard about that in the Edge documentary, the Edge WWE 24 special. He talked about how AEW made him an offer after he had done that spear at SummerSlam in Toronto a couple of years back, 2019. And how Vince said, well, if you're going to have, one more run, if you're going to have one more match, you have to have it here. And so I understand that Edge is, like a big star, not to say that Mark Henry and Christian aren't, but I'm just a little bit perplexed as to why he wouldn't have made the same declaration to to those other guys. But then again, you look at the way that Kurt Angle finished his career, jobbing out to guys for the last 6 or 8 months of his career and having a 3-minute retirement match. Maybe they didn't want to have that, and maybe that's what they had in mind. You're just going to put over younger talent for, 6 months or 8 months, and that's going to be your final run. And maybe these guys thought that the grass was greener on the AEW side.
I feel like you and I could talk about this for a long time and argue because you know how I feel about some of these talents versus how you feel about some of these talents. But we have quite the show to still get into, man. And I think we need to jump right into it because I have 5 pages of notes to get through.
Absolutely. Let's batten down.
Single spaced, double-sided, whatever the Friends quote is. Let's do this.
Wait a minute. You typed it out?
No, I was just trying to make a funny joke.
Okay. Well, I would love to see you at a keyboard, with like a cigar and a glass, like a snifter of brandy.
Oh, it'd be a typewriter, bud. Let's be real.
What was that show? I think it was at the end of Murder, She Wrote, where they always had that guy typing on the key on the typewriter and then pull the page out, and it would be like the signature for the company.
Did you just try to make me sound old by sitting at a keyboard with a glass of scotch and a cigar, and then you referenced Murder, She Wrote?
Yeah,
we're done. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We're not even going to get into the rebooking. Jay's on an Angela Lansbury kick right now.
100%. I can't wait. Just wait until we loop the Golden Girls, and we're going to have ourselves a deja vu.
I am all about the Golden Girls anytime, any place, my friend.
Yes. Well, if Tyrone's search history on his iPhone is any indication, then I would agree. So, with
hey now.
With that being said, we are covering the World Wrestling Federation's presentation of the King of the Ring tournament and pay-per-view. This took place on June 25th, 1995 at the Philadelphia Core State Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The attendance was 16,590 with a buy rate of 150,000. The tagline was Guts and Glory, which makes me believe that maybe Lex Luger at some point was supposed to be involved more viscerally. This is a very interesting time in the company. We just covered In Your House a couple of weeks ago. I rebooked that one with Tyrone, and we are looking at a very pivotal time in the company's history. It's a real transitional time from the golden age, or the Federation years of wrestling. We had a couple of years there where there was really not a lot happening. There was a transitional period where you had guys like Flair and Warrior and Hogan on top, but you had Brett and Shawn starting to come up. And now those aforementioned stars are gone completely from the company. And we have Brett and Shawn and Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow as the top stars in the company at this time. We just come off
and Mabel.
11. Pardon?
And Mabel. Don't forget about Mabel.
Of course, Mabel. Yes, absolutely. So we were coming off WrestleMania 11 as well, which was somewhat of a success. We had Lawrence Taylor taking on Bam Bam Bigelow with a lot of celebrity involvement in that particular WrestleMania. And we're marching towards the summer of 1995. And, a lot of people look at this particular year, 1995, as one of the more down periods in WWF history in the 1990s. What's your take on 1995 overall?
It's not great. There's no denying the fact that it's not great. There wasn't a lot of depth on the roster. You had your Bretts, your Shawns, your Nashes, as you mentioned, your Scott Halls, but there was a lot of shit on the undercard. Like, there was a wrestler named Mantar in 1995 who wore a giant bull's head to the ring. There was Bastion Booger. There was Duke the Dumpster Drosy. There was TL Hopper, the plumber. Overall, 95 was not a banner year for the WWF. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be, but it's not great, I think is the best way I can put it. You had some great stuff in there, stuff involving Bret Hart, Hakushi, the 1-2-3 Kid, but then you also had a lot of shit involving Sid.
That's very true. I will say, like, going back and watching this pay-per-view, I didn't think that the in-ring was that bad. I thought that, that the matches themselves were quite well worked. Some of the storylines, obviously, and some of the gimmicks were pretty hard to digest. But we alluded to this last week on the program that this is one of the events that we wanted to cover from the very beginning. It's one that Tyrone and I both felt really needed a good once over or a makeover, and we're going to rebook this. Actually, Tyrone's going to rebook it, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone, I'm going to lay out here, and it is all yours. Sock it to me.
Well, we're going to start off with all of the King of the Ring qualifying matches. Now, I'm not going to lay out dates and events and shows that it happened. I'm just going to tell you the 16 people that took place, who won, and who is going on to the actual tournament. Now, for those of you who have listened to our In Your House show, you know that Jay threw a qualifying match on there already. So part of my work was done. You had The Undertaker defeating Rick the Model Martel. So he is going on into the tournament. He will face the winner of Sparkplug Bob Holly and the Supreme Fighting Machine, Kama. So in the first round, we are going to have The Undertaker taking on Kama. Next up in the qualifying matches, we had King Kong Bundy defeating Adam Bomb. Bundy is going to go up against the winner of Mantar, that wonderful man that I spoke about earlier, and the bad guy, Razor Ramon. So obviously, we have Mantar going up against King Kong. No, we have Razor Ramon going against King Kong Bundy. Followed by the next qualifier, we had Doink the Clown defeating Duke the Dumpster Drosy, going up against the winner of Mabel and Lex Luger. We had Mabel knock Lex Luger out in a qualifying match. That's how high I think of 95 Lex Luger. And finally, our last two qualifying matches, we had the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels take on Jeff Jarrett, and we had HBK go over Jarrett. And finally, we had the Roadie going up against a debuting Skip of the Body Donnas, with Skip getting the win. So our bracket going into the King of the Ring 1995 is King Kong Bundy versus Razor Ramon, The Undertaker versus Kama, Skip versus Shawn Michaels, and Mabel versus Doink. I don't know what your thoughts on that so far, RJ, but how am I doing so far?
I don't hate it so far. I mean, you're hitting all the notes there, I think, with all the different characters and different personas that we had in '95. I mean, obviously, you had to have them involved in the card and in the weeks leading up to the King of the Ring pay-per-view. So when you say that this is what we're going into on the actual night of the event, correct?
This is what is being advertised going into the actual event. Now,
no, gentlemen, advertised, card subject to change.
Now, here's what we're going to do. We are getting into the actual event, but we are starting with a dark match because I kept one thing true, and that was that Razor Ramon did get injured. So, to fill Razor's spot in the tournament, we have Savio Vega defeating IRS. Got to still throw Savio in there. This was almost like a coming out party for him until we all know what happened in the end. So, Savio takes over for Razor. So, the first round match will now be Savio Vega versus King Kong Bundy. Are you with me? Are we ready to actually get into the pay-per-view?
Let's get into it. I'm actually really excited about this. So, let's see what you got.
All right, our opening contest is a quarterfinal matchup for the King of the Ring tournament, and it is Savio Vega versus King Kong Bundy. We start the match off with King Kong Bundy getting the upper hand, lots of haymakers, just kind of throwing his weight around, hits Vega a few times, throws him into the corner, and goes for an avalanche. Wow, apparently I can't even say that word properly. Goes for an avalanche in the corner. Savio Vega is able to duck, and as he ducks, he hits the ropes and just hits him with a crazy spin kick. It's enough to get the win. Savio Vega is pinning King Kong Bundy 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring to move on to the second round.
Really? I thought for sure it'd be over after the avalanche.
Ha, 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 ha. I mean, it was. He just missed it.
I was hoping for a special Delivery Jones treatment there, but no, that's good. I think Savio going over makes sense. King Kong Bundy, established star, was doing great things 10 years earlier, but at this point was really just there to get some guys over and be a heavy for the $1 Million Corporation. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, his 95 run was kind of lackluster at best.
Yeah, it's too bad. I think he still had some gas in the tank in terms of being able to work. I mean, he wasn't obviously in pinnacle shape. He was in much better shape back in '86 when he was taking on Hogan, but I felt like they could have done a little bit more with him.
Okay, now we are going to a match that Jay is here for. Another quarterfinal matchup for the King of the Ring tournament with The Undertaker taking on the Supreme. Is it the Supreme or the Ultimate? But the Fighting Machine, Kama.
Supreme Fighting Machine.
So This one's going to start off with just the two of them going at it. A little bit of backstory. Earlier in the year, the Undertaker's urn has been stolen by Kama and the $1 Million Man, and it has been melted down into a chain. This really happened, folks. Check it out. So you're at ringside. DiBiase's got the chain around him. Undertaker is constantly kind of distracted by the fact that DiBiase is wearing what was his urn around his neck. Fight happens. Little distraction on the behalf of Ted DiBiase. The Undertaker kind of goes to grab him. DiBiase runs away, turns around, gets stiff-armed by Paul Bearer, who then takes the chain and starts to run away. As that happens, Kama is able to run out of the ring, and he legitimately just sucker punches Paul Bearer to get the chain back. DiBiase has the chain in his hands from Kama. Undertaker starts chasing DiBiase up the aisle. Winner via countout, Kama.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that makes sense. I mean, I didn't really see Undertaker winning the King of the Ring. We saw that this $1 Million Corporation stuff with the Undertaker had been going on for quite a while at this point. You know, all the way back to SummerSlam '94 with the Undertaker versus the Undertaker. So this feud had been going on for quite some time. We even saw IRS versus the Undertaker at Royal Rumble that year, plus Undertaker versus King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to continue the Undertaker's quest to run through the $1 Million Corporation, then this makes sense to me. I'm fine with it. The only thing for me is, are we building then to a match with Kama and Undertaker later on down the road? I guess that's where we would be going, right?
Well, it happened at SummerSlam '95 anyway.
It did, yeah, but I think it would, like, now that you've like added more fuel to the fire, I feel like maybe that might need to be more of a stip, like a casket or something. But anyways, we're not booking that event right now, so.
No, and I really hope I don't have to. I hope that you get to do the next 1995 one. I think it's only fair that we go one for one on this year.
As long as I don't have to do 2012 again for a while, I'm fine.
That's fair. All right, so now we have. So are you keeping track? So far, we've had Savio Vega go to the next round and Kama.
Yes.
All right. As long as you're not seeing any weird shit happening right now so far with how I'm booking this, our next match is another quarterfinal match for the King of the Ring, with Skip featuring Sonny taking on the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. This match is just full of innovative high-flying moves for 95, a.k.a. a moonsault, an acai moonsault, a little jump here and there. You know what I mean. It was 95. Nobody really knew this shit yet. So as Shawn takes advantage, he hits the Sweet Chin music on Skip, but he is then distracted by Sid, who has come to ringside. Sid is just staring at him. They're making eye contact because if you'll remember, in Jay's booking of In Your House, we had a one-on-one match with Shawn and Sid. So we're keeping that feud going a little bit as the referee is trying to tell Sid to turn around, get out of here. Doesn't Mr. Candido, good old Skip, hit Shawn Michaels right in the face with a chair. Guess what happens, Jay? He pins him. 1, 2, 3. Chris Candido goes over Shawn Michaels in the King of the Ring quarterfinal. With a pin, too.
I'll reserve judgment to see where you go with this, but I don't know about that. I mean, if the idea
it's a whole new meaning to the term sunny days now too, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, if the idea is that you're going to continue the Sid feud, then I don't really get the chair shot, because that's just gonna it's gonna add fuel to the fire with Skip and Shawn. I don't know. I mean, I don't see a 95 Skip going over Shawn Michaels, but I don't know. I'll let you continue booking and we'll see where you go with that.
I mean, I totally see where you're coming from, but we also knew Shawn wasn't going to win King of the Ring. I had already done one countout finish. I didn't really want to keep doing two crazy schmoz finishes. Like, yes, this one was a bit of a schmoz, but it's behind the ref's back, so it's a little different.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So now,
where you go?
Our final quarterfinal match is everybody's favorite, Doink the Clown, going one-on-one with Mabel. Jay, how do you think this one pans out, bud?
I'm thinking Doink goes over.
So if this were Matt Bourne Evil Doink, there'd be no question about it. Doink would have won the King of the Ring tournament. But because this is Rhea Apollo Doink at the end of his career, it is an absolute squash that Mabel just destroys Doink and moves on to the next round. Nothing special to talk about. It's just big man, little man. It's over in about 2.5 minutes.
I'm a little surprised, to be honest. I thought for sure that you would have Doink going over, but no, I'm kind of glad that you didn't, because I'm not a fan of face Doink, so it makes sense. Like I could see if this was like 93 or something and it was like prime heel Doink, but for face Doink, I'm all about Mabel. I'm fine with that. Well, it looks like we've lost Tyrone here. I'm not quite sure where he went, but
Oh shit, I had it on mute. Sorry about that.
no worries.
I don't know if you have the original card in front of you, but every single match on the original one, with the exception of 2, is just a tournament match. And what I liked about King of the Ring in previous times is it would almost be like after each round, there would be a buffer match, and then you would go back into the tournament. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
So our next match is for the Intercontinental Championship. We have Double J Jeff Jarrett defending the Intercontinental Championship against the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. I honestly thought that Bam Bam would be higher on the card based on what happened with him, turning face at the In Your House the month previous. But yeah, I could see him going for the Intercontinental title. Sure, why not?
So the match starts as the roadie distracts Bam Bam right away. Jarrett gets the upper hand, tosses Bam outside. Roadie is getting in a couple of shots behind the referee's back. Finally, the ref turns around and notices the roadie looking like he's up to no good, as he always was. And we get that wonderful, wonderful moment where the referee looks at Jesse James and says, "You're out of here." Throws him out to the back. So we get back to one-on-one. Bigelow's back in the ring. He starts actually attacking Jeff Jarrett to the midsection with a couple of kicks, hits a belly to belly. All of a sudden, he's hitting a falling headbutt, like one of his perfect standing headbutts he would do. He signals, climbs to the top rope. We get a flying headbutt, and we get a new Intercontinental Champion. Bam Bam Bigelow wins the title, something that should have happened in his career. I stand by this full-heartedly, that the man should have been at least Intercontinental Champion, and he gets it in my booking.
Yep, I'm actually fine with that. I'm fine with Bamber having a singles title run. I think it makes sense, and it also it creates some fresh matchups. I think going into the summer of 95, I think that you have the opportunity to see some new kind of feuds, and again, like Jarrett was such a great utility player as Intercontinental Champion. But I do feel like at this time, it was maybe time to change the dynamic of the Intercontinental Championship a bit. It didn't always have to be, the really well-established, fast-paced, lightweight worker. Not lightweight, but you know what I mean, like a Shawn Michaels, Jeff Jarrett-sized athlete. I kind of like the idea of having, people chase after the Intercontinental title. My only question with this one is, would you keep Bammer as a face, or would you turn him back heel again? Because I almost feel like Bam Bam as Intercontinental Champion would work better as a heel, but you don't want to do too many turns.
I mean, you could keep him face for the title run, and then say he loses it a couple of months down the line, does the thing that we've all seen happen a million times, where he kind of snaps, goes to shake the guy's hand, and then destroys him, and then he becomes the heel going on the chase for the title. Like, Bam Bam wouldn't be with the company much longer after this. I think he was only there for another month, maybe, after this. So
no, he was still there. He wrestled Goldust at SummerSlam or at Survivor Series 95. So he was still there.
Oh, you're right.
He was still there until the late part of 95. So you're basically saying what he's going to do is the same thing that Diesel did at the end of Survivor Series 95, where he just snaps and then he power bombs Brett 3 times. That's the same sort of idea as what you do.
Yeah, but it's better because it's Bam Bam.
Fair enough.
All right, on to the next. We have entered the semifinals of the King of the Ring. And up first, we have Savio Vega going one-on-one with Kama. Now, we've already seen Savio take out two different members of the $1 Million Corporation with IRS in the dark match and then King Kong Bundy in the first round. So now he's going up against Kama. As he comes down the ring, he is already just battered. He had to go up against the fucking walking condominium of King Kong Bundy, the taxman and IRS, two of the scariest things in the world. We know that, a condominium and the taxman.
Yes.
So now he's going up against Kama. After some gloating and a whole bunch of showboating by Kama, Savio is back on his feet after. Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned that as soon as he gets in the ring, he gets sidearmed and like knocked out pretty much. Kama is then showboating and gloating all around the ring. Savio gets back to his feet. He ducks a clothesline, gets in some offense, which leads to Kama just taking the big gold chain and wrapping it around his fist and slugging him in the face. Referee sees it. You have your disqualification finish of the pay-per-view. Savio Vega is going to the finals, though.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I feel like Savio needed this at this time. I mean, Kama was going to go into a program with Undertaker anyway, so it didn't really make a difference, I don't think, for him. I mean, I think all things being equal, you'd probably rather go into a program with Taker than win the King of the Ring. So I think that makes sense. And this is a really great way to establish Savio. He's a brand new character of the company that we kind of debuted just before the In Your House in May. So yeah, I like this. It works.
I'm actually shocked of how much you're not hating this, with one exception so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you have to work with what you have. And again, we've talked about this a couple of times, that you always have to book to the time period. I mean, I use this as an example a few times, but when you're rebooking like St. Valentine's Day Massacre in '99, it's height of the Attitude Era. You can't go off the script and just book, how you'd book something today. You have to book of the time and of the era. So I think you're doing a really good job, to be honest.
And now we get here, though. Now we have our other semifinal match, which is the rare for the time heel versus heel with Skip against Mabel. The match nobody knew they wanted to see. And I promise you, even after thinking about it in my head, you still don't want to see it.
No, you do not. I was just going to say, you still don't.
So this one comes out, and it seems like it's going to be a weird little conversation turning into kind of like a business deal going on in the ring. Mabel's in the ring, and then Sonny and Skip come out. Sonny and Mo are then on the outside talking, and it seems like a deal is being made where if Mabel wins the King of the Ring tournament and wins the WWF Championship, Skip will become his first opponent. So Skip looks like he's ready to lay down for Mabel in order for Mabel to move on. That's when Sonny just all slaps Mabel in the face and gives him a low blow. As she does that, he does that wonderful spot that we've seen every big man in the world do. I am literally doing it right now, where they go to lean back and their arms are flailing and they just can't catch their balance. Everything, they don't know what's going to happen. As that happens, Skip literally just crawls behind him as Sonny, yes, I know I'm saying that a 115-pound woman shoves Mabel, a 500-pound man, over Skip like a schoolyard prank, and Skip rolls him up for a 3 count. And that is now going to be your King of the Ring final, is Savio Vega and Skip.
So where is the ref in all this?
Bell didn't ring until he started teetering. I don't know, man. I didn't think that went all the way through. I wanted to get Skip in the finals, and I didn't want Mabel in the finals because it's fucking Mabel, and he ruined the King of the Ring as it was. So maybe I should have thought that. I was just going for a weird, fucked up finish. The ref is wherever the ref is. It's wrestling. Use your imagination.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll take that. I have a feeling I know where this is going. I'm not going to jump the gun here, but I have a pretty good suspicion of where we are going with this this finale. So I'm going to let you keep on going.
Well, our next match is actually for the WWF Tag Team Championship. We have Owen Hart and Yokozuna defending the titles against Billy and Bart, the Smoking Guns. This is one of those classic matches where we kind of spoke about this in our Owen episode last week, where Owen does a lot of the work and Yoko gets the tag later. So it's pretty much Owen going up against the Guns, looking strong, but then, of course, the baby faces get the heat. They're able to take Owen out. Owen ended up hitting an enziguri to Bart, who is then he tags in Yokozuna. Yokozuna comes in, gives Billy a quick Samoan drop, gets rid of him, climbs up to the turnbuckle, bonsai drop on Bart. Winner, still tag team champions, Yoko and Owen.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. I mean, we just saw it at WrestleMania 11. They won the titles from them. If you remember the booking we had for In Your House, that we had already seen the obligatory rematch that they would get for the titles, and they'd already gone over them. So I get why you wanted the tag team championships defended on the card. I'm all for that, and I know that it's sort of slim pickings with the tag teams back in.
Yeah, I wasn't putting the Bushwhackers up against them. I'll tell you that.
No, and I get that. I just, I don't know. I would have maybe preferred to see a rematch with the Allied Powers and kind of build on that breakup angle. But no, I'm 100% fine with this match. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of blah for me.
That's fair. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, whether it be right or wrong. That's up to you. But now is where we get fun. Now is when we get to the finals of the goddamn King of the Ring tournament. We have Savio Vega going up against Skip. And Jay, I feel like you know how I'm going to end this one, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So, both men at this point are just completely running on adrenaline. It is just, they're hard hitting. They're both trying to end the match as quick as they can. They've gone through two other guys. Savio's already gone through three. They just need this win. Then they become the king of wrestling, which is what everybody wants. Sonny tries to interfere, but Skip ends up running into her on the apron. Oh no, I didn't mean to. He's worried about her. What does he do? He turns around. Savio Vega hits a goddamn spin kick, and all is right in the world, Jay. Savio Vega wins the 1995 King of the Ring.
Yep. I honestly thought you were going to have Skip go over. I thought you were going to have Skip win the King of the Ring.
I'm not going to lie. I contemplated it, but I was like, I can't justify a fucking workout guru going for the WWF title. I can't even justify the fact that he beat Shawn Michaels for the most part, but that's easier, in my opinion, than having a main event SummerSlam.
I can't see Savio Vega main eventing SummerSlam in 95 either, to be honest with you. I mean, I love that this match happened, and I think in a different era, in a different time frame, it maybe would have been much more palatable. But in 1995, I can't see Savio Vega going up against the WWF champion at SummerSlam. I'm sorry, I just don't see it.
That's fine. I know I kind of mentioned it earlier had they announced that the winner would get a title shot? I couldn't remember.
I can't remember, but it was kind of like an unwritten thing. I mean, it happened in 95. It didn't happen.
And then it didn't happen again until Brock Lesnar.
No, it happened again. Yeah, you're right, actually. I don't think it maybe did happen again until... Yeah, that's true. I guess maybe they would book it for whatever purposes suited them. Because it didn't happen it happened in 94. It didn't happen in 93. So I guess that's true. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to go up against the title. Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that. You know what? If that's the case,
and also
if that's where we're gonna go, is that he doesn't necessarily main event SummerSlam, then I'm fine with it.
Also, who's to say that Big Daddy Cool Diesel will hold the title going into SummerSlam?
Oh, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't see Savio Vega as being the number one contender for the title for the number 2 pay-per-view of the year in 1995. I don't see it at all. But if that's not part of it, if it's just he wins the tournament and then we book from there, then I'm fine with this. The only thing I have issue with is you have Skip going up or beating Shawn. Other than that, I'm fine with this whole tournament. I think he did a good job with it.
Well, that brings us to our main event of the evening.
Oh
And
boy.
it is for the WWF Championship. We have Big Daddy Cool Diesel going one-on-one with Bret the Hitman Hart. Now, does this shock you that this is what I put on?
It more confuses me than anything else. Well, walk me through it.
So, Bret's coming off of In Your House where he had that hard-fought battle with Hakushi that Hakushi did win. But it's Bret Hart. And him and Jerry Lawler have been having their feud, which Lawler and Bret ended up having a match on Monday Night Raw. And the stipulation for that was that if Lawler had won, then Bret would never get a chance for the WWF Championship again. And if Bret had won, he would become the number one contender for King of the Ring. That match that happened on Raw was the Kiss My Foot match that was going to happen on King of the Ring. I turned it into a Monday Night Raw main event because I thought the Kiss My Foot match was the stupidest fucking stipulation ever other than the Crybaby match. 95 had a lot of really bad stips. Let's just leave it at that. Bret ends up winning, so he does become the number one contender. It's him and Diesel now. They're having an incredible match. We know they can. They're going at it. You get a lot of offense on both men. Bret is able to play the little man playing off of Diesel, whereas Diesel is also able to feed for Bret and also doesn't mind selling for Bret. So we see that one beautiful spot of the figure four around the ring apron with Diesel's long legs there. Bret's got it locked in. As he has that locked in, we get Jerry Lawler coming out. Jerry Lawler then proceeds to just beat the living tar out of a tired Bret Hart, ends in a disqualification. Diesel then goes to chase away Jerry Lawler, which then brings out Tatanka and DiBiase. So now you've got a schmoz finish with the four of them all brawling as we go off the air, leading into whatever it may happen after. And In Your House, a SummerSlam, a Monday Night Raw. The next one's on you, bud. I just like to set them up so you can knock them down.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I liked most of your booking. This one, I'm not a fan of it. I just feel I like the idea of Bret versus Diesel. We had this match was legitimately on the year's previous King of the Ring. We saw Bret versus Diesel at King of the Ring 94. It's basically the exact same finish with the exception of, Diesel was the champion this time. I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot of momentum going into the $1 Million Corporation deal there with how we ended off In Your House and having that big face turn with Bam Bam. I'm not suggesting that we should have kept the same main event that actually happened, but I definitely felt like there was unfinished business with Diesel and the $1 Million Corporation. So,
yeah, which is also what brings out Tatanka at the end. So that still is there. But there was no way in hell that I was keeping the exact same main event because I wanted Bam Bam to get a title. And I hate Sid. So I'm sorry, it just wasn't happening.
No, and I wouldn't have expected you to. That's the first thing I thought of when we talked about rebooking this was that I know that main event's going to change. It would have changed for me too. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I have no idea where it's going to go from here. I mean, the schmoz finish, yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're gonna build off this until going into the summer, then I kind of feel like, yeah, that's fine. I don't hate the idea of Bret versus Diesel 3 times in 95 on pay-per-view. We saw the Royal Rumble, then we saw, we're going to see this match and then Survivor Series. So I don't hate the idea of there being a trilogy in 95. And I'm glad that you didn't put the title on Bret because that match at Survivor Series really shouldn't be changed. But I guess just the schmoz thing kind of throws me off because the whole idea of the Jerry Lawler, Bret Hart, Kiss My Foot match was supposed to be the big blow off, which I guess it technically wasn't because then we brought in Isaac Yankem and all that kind of thing. So I get that, but I don't know. I think he did a good job. It's a hard pay-per-view to
The
rebook.
funny the funniest thing to me right now is like whenever I do these rebookings and I hear you being like, I don't know. I hear you talking yourself through it, and if you're okay with it, and you either get to one like you're either by the end of it you're like, no, you know what, you did a good job, or you just go, really, Kurt Hennig, really.
Yeah, no, there's some for sure that I can't get behind. I think I'm split here. Like it's like a split decision with the judges, right? Like one part of me is like, all right, I'm fine with this if we're going to use this as a catapult to bring us to to SummerSlam. I don't want to see Tatanka versus Diesel at SummerSlam. I can tell you that right now. I kind of felt like at this point, the Jerry Lawler, Bret Hart stuff was kind of run its course. I'm ready to do something else. So I guess if you have In Your House in July to blow everything off and then start I don't know. Yeah, you know what? I don't really have an opinion, to be honest. Is that fair? I don't really know how to react to this.
That's totally fair. I mean, I don't really want to see Tatanka versus Diesel ever either, but at the time, there was a good chance that we could have gotten that, and you know that.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, like, so if we're going to do like a big man match, like in canon, we had Diesel versus Mabel, right? So I would have rather seen like a Yoko versus Mabel or versus Diesel at SummerSlam instead. I mean, at least, Yoko could work a little bit better than Mabel could, but yeah, I don't know. I think that your card overall was really well booked, and I really enjoyed it. It's just the main event really threw me off. And so did that Shawn and Skip thing.
That's fair. I mean, if we were in a different era, I probably would have thrown a triple threat or a fatal four-way into the mix, but that really wasn't a thing yet. It was a lot of just one-on-one title matches. If I was doing a triple threat, Shawn could have been thrown into the main. You never know. Tatanka could have been thrown into the main just to kind of blow off the entire $1 Million Corporation feud with Diesel. There was a lot of things that I was toying with, but because it was the era of one-on-one, I kept it like that.
Yeah, see, that's where I kind of feel like I would have gone with it. I'm not trying to change your booking or suggest what I would book, like that mine would be better or anything like that. I think for me, I feel like there was one more corporation hurdle for Diesel to overcome. And I feel like if you do like a Tatanka, for example, versus Diesel, and then you make the stip, if Tatanka loses, the $1 Million Corporation gets no more opportunities at the title. Maybe that's a way to do it. I like the idea that you kind of combine the two angles and you've kind of now set it up for something else. I guess for me, because neither one of us are booking In Your House in July of 95, it's really hard for me to conceptualize where we go from here because I haven't really given it a lot of thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I kind of didn't want to see the Bret Hart Lawler match personally. That's why I moved it to Raw. And I know if I didn't have either Bret, Lawler, or Nash on this card, you would have blown a gasket for sure. Listeners probably would have lost their goddamn minds. So I had to do something.
Don't book because of me though. Like no, I don't. I think in an era where the roster and the company is kind of struggling, I think you kind of have to have all hands on deck. So I just think that you kind of had to have Diesel and Bret on the card. So the match itself, I'm always going to love a Diesel Bret match. So I'm all good with that. So I'd say I'd give you a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 on this one.
Which is better than the probably 2 or 3 that the original one got.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I agree with that.
So
do you want to just quickly through the results of the card, or the main card? You don't have to go through the King of the Ring brackets again, but do you want to just give us the results of the main card for posterity here?
I.e., you want them for your notes? That way when you have to rebook your house down the line, you know what I did?
No, I'll just ask you to send me the notes like I did you this week.
Fair enough. So we had the dark match of Savio defeating IRS to take Razor Ramon's spot, followed by Savio taking on Bundy, defeating him, Kama taking on The Undertaker and defeating him, Skip beating HBK, Mabel beating Doink. Then we had the IC title match with Bam Bam Bigelow winning the title from Jeff Jarrett. Then we went on to the semifinals with Savio Vega defeating Kama and Skip defeating Mabel. Then we went on to the tag title match and had Owen and Yoko taking on the Smoking Guns, with Owen and Yoko winning. And then Savio Vega won the King of the Ring tournament from Skip. And then we had our really disqualification, kind of no finish match with Brett and Diesel for the title. I can tell by his silence that Jay just is still trying to process everything that I said, and he really just doesn't like it, whether he says he does or doesn't.
No, I had myself on mute again there. My apologies. No, I think all things considered, you did the best you could with what you had, and we'll see where we go from here. I'm not sure when we're going to touch on 95 again. We might not go there for a bit because we've done kind of two within a few weeks. Who knows? Maybe we'll decide to do one in July. But with that being said, I legitimately have no idea what I'm doing next week. So why don't you give me a heads up there, pal?
So the way we talked earlier, we were talking about how the 1995 in the WWF was not the best year. So I thought, what is kind of the equivalent of 95 WWF? And of course, I had to go with 2000 WCW. So Jay, you will be rebooking next week the Great American Bash 2000 from WCW, which is highlighted and headlined by Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash for the WCW title. It's also that wonderful, wonderful pay-per-view where we get Billy Kidman and Hulk Hogan going one-on-one.
Oh, joy. That's so much fun. I was nice to you this week. I gave you the episode that we both wanted to do from the beginning, and now you're giving me WCW 2000. And last week you gave me 2012 WWE. Like, what are you doing?
We have not done any 2000s WCW. And if you had given it to me, I would be having a ton of fun with it, because this is an era where you could literally book anything because it just changed so frequently. Nothing you book will ever matter in this one. You could do this card, and then the next day on Monday Nitro, Russo will throw it all out and they'll start over.
Yeah, I suppose. It kind of goes against my booking philosophy, to be honest with you. It's going to be hard to book in that way, to just book random nonsense. So I guess I'll try to make sense of WCW 2000. We'll see where we go from there. I mean, the next month's pay-per-view, the Bash of the Beach, is the one, like Hogan's last appearance in WCW. So maybe I can work something in there. I definitely have some ideas about the Millionaires Club and the new breed and all that stuff. I need to get rid of that stuff. So anyways, I'll work on that. And I suppose over the weekend I will find copious amounts of bourbon and watch the pay-per-view and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually watched this pay-per-view, so I'm going to fully sit down and watch it too over the weekend. And I might even toy with what I would do, and maybe we'll compare by the end of the show and see how far off we are.
Yeah, sounds good. Maybe we'll just end up plugging it in one day at the same time and end up just having a chat about it while we're watching. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are very much eagerly anticipating the summer. We have a lot of fun things coming up on tap. I know Tyrone and I have been talking about some pretty interesting projects. We are also looking into finally getting the other two members of the Counted Out 7 community with us, Mike and Tyler. Love to be able to do a roundtable of some sort. We're actually planting some seeds for something pretty special coming in July that we would have some involvement with at least one of those two gentlemen, discussing something that we have long awaited talking about. And it's actually a subject, much like today's King of the Ring 1995, that we've wanted to broach since the beginning of this podcast. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to go and try to find some sort of receptacle to have beside me as I watch this WCW 2000 Great American Bash, as I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to vomit halfway through it. Kidding, of course. Always love all the performers in WCW. But unless you have anything else to add, my friend, where can they find us on social media?
Oh, the same places they can find us every other week. On Instagram, good_enemies. On Twitter, good_enemies. And on Facebook, the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast. And as always, our show is available on the Count It Out Count It Out 7 YouTube page. Make sure you like and subscribe to get all of our content, as well as Tyler and Mike's content. There's some great stuff up there. Everything from our bullshit to their fun little lists to their interviews. They are doing great stuff. I know I said fun little lists. That kind of sounded condescending, and I didn't mean it that way at all. I apologize, but that's all I got, man. That's all I got.
It's like you're alluding to your byway shopping list or something from circa 1998.
I'm more of a bargain heralds guy kind of anyway, so.
I always liked Heinzel's myself. But anyway, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, for myself, for Tyrone, for Avalanches, for King of the Ring 1995, and for next week's unbelievably unprecedented viewing of the WCW Great American Bash 2000 pay-per-view event, the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast thanks you very much.
Bye. Happy birthday, Tyler.